Hi, everybody. This is Sarah, Pearls of Wisdom and Food, with the Magic Pill Part 2 review. Because I have all these notes, and so I got rather lengthy, and I was only on page 2. So now I will continue with the Magic Pill movie review. It's going to add up to the same amount of time as the movie takes. All right, next we move on to this lovely lady from, I think it's Cape Town, or at least it's the southern part of Africa, and she has adopted this young lad, and he is nonverbal, and I think he's around 10 years old, and so she has just worked with him. She adores him, and is so invested in him getting better, and so she ends up putting him on a keto food plan, and really gets him involved in it because he's old enough, and she teaches them how to cook, like they're cooking broccoli, and he puts lots of coconut oil on it, and he was just, oh, and he had all kinds of autistic, the bobbing, the jerking, and nodding, and things like that. And after 6 months, he was verbal. He could articulate sentences, and he wasn't bobbing and weaving. His gait was much better. He was taller, and his smile, it could warm the world, I swear. And so he's beginning to say words, not only words, but sentences, and connecting feelings in the sentence. It's just wonderful. And so that's another segment of it. And then we have Professor Tim Oakes, and he made his he made his claim to fame with a high carbohydrate diet for runners, and he's so self-effacing. And what happened was, in a text or a blog, something, he suggested to a nursing mom who was weaning to put the baby on high fats and basically the keto food plan. And a nutritionist got into, well, she just got her dander up about it and reported him because he is a doctor, and it must have been physiology or something, and he had no business giving out nutritional advice. And so the Cape Town government spent millions of dollars prosecuting him. Now, Nina Teichholz came to his rescue, and she wrote the Big Fat Lie or something like that, all about the fats and meats and everything else. And she's, like Dr. Kate Shanahan and Perlmutter and Dr. Davis, they just are all just, they have so much value and knowledge about keto and how it works for us, and all the scientific stuff. So she jumped to his defense. Anyway, they found him not guilty after spending millions and millions on him, and it does a lot of the trial. The state or country has now appealed, and they want another retrial. So the poor guy, but it was another tearjerker because he's such a great guy. And, he's one of the doctors that went from, touting nothing but high carbs. He even invented gooch, pooch, mooch, some liquid thing that runners drink when they're running, and it's just loaded with the carbs and the sugar to just keep them going in marathons. It's just kind of funny. And how now here he is, keto all the way. So, yeah, so we met Aaron, and he's just wonderfully adapting to it all, and there was that. And then they had a doctor in Hawaii, and he's talking about, he too works with a lot of children, and he talked a lot about how the ketones come from fat, and it's the ketones that we use for fuel now. And so it was just a nice segment. And then we had one woman, and she's got her gal pal. She doesn't really like eating alone, and so she's going to do it. She's in Las Vegas, and she seems to me like the sort of woman that waitresses, that tries to get a lounge singing job, that just she's all over trying to just aspire to be somebody in Las Vegas, like so many people in LA and Las Vegas. And so she goes on this, and she brings over her two girlfriends, and they're making this wonderful salad. They're making homemade mayonnaise to put in a dressing on the salad. And one of them, they're both trim, and one of them fears the fat. So it's so funny because, it shows them sharing and talking, and they bring up Susan Powder. Do any of you remember Susan Powder? She was the no fat. She was like, I just remember she was like one of the first ones with the headphone microphone, and how, we had to get used to that, like Tony Robbins and stuff. Is just like another digression, I know. And so then we had them talking about Eisenhower's heart attack. And this is in the late 50s, early 60s, and he was hospitalized for 10 days. And this really threw the government into a tizzy. We've got a president in the hospital with a heart attack. What's going to happen? And of course, back then, you had it and you went. And so he kept getting better, but it was so funny because they were blaming it on everything but the sugar and the carbs. They were blaming it on saturated fat. So they had a few experts talking about that. They brought up Ansel Keys, that lying sack of what doctor that skewed all of his charts and graphs and reports and countries to prove that it was saturated fat that harmed the heart and not inflammation, insulin resistance, and sugars and carbs, grains. So that was very interesting. And so he ended up proving, and the food industry ended up buying, that sugar caused, we now know sugar causes the heart attacks, but that it was saturated fat. So it's interesting. So that's another segment that they had in it. And then that's the Tim Noakes thing. And then Nina Teicholz, back to her again, in the cameos that they showed. She was talking about how something is very wrong with our food pyramid, and yet how, it's all over the world. Our food pyramid is all over the world, and how it needs to be turned upside down, with the fats being, the highest at the bottom, and up at the top would be the grains. And in my case, and a lot of your cases, we have no grains, so that takes care of that. Then there was the woman that had the breast cancer, and a Jewish woman that cooks kosher in her house, and it shows her and a girlfriend making sugar-free macadamia chocolates, and also this fat bread. And then she talked about her breast cancer, and she went in for the mammogram, and it showed this hot red group of cells. And she said it real fast, but I think it was the HER, BRAC, some sort of very aggressive breast cancer. And, you go home with the, I'm going to die sort of feeling. And she began cooking keto, gave up the grains, gave up the sugars, and began cooking this keto lifestyle. It shows her cooking. And because she's Orthodox Jewish, she's got turbans on each time. And so the interviewer said, is this because you lost your hair? And she said, no, I had no chemo, no radiation, nothing. She came home and changed her diet. And they went to do the radiation again to see, how the that hot red cell group was doing, and it was completely gone. And the radiologist said, if I was looking at a slide of somebody else, unknown, I would say there's nothing to worry about here. So she cured herself with keto foods. Amazing. Just amazing. And that bread looked really good. It only had 1 carb in it. So there was that story too. And, another heartwarming one where the woman just took control, and it showed her cooking everything. And instead of, dying in 6 months, she's vibrant in 6 months with this, beautiful family, and everybody's happy that she's alive. So then we get to another segment, which is Dr. Noakes, Tim Noakes, the one line that he said during his investigation or the hearings, whatever it was, he said, I love this. He goes, we continue to teach a failed model because it's not keto, it's high sugars and high carbs. We continue to teach a failed model. And so if you teach it and teach it and teach it, well, that's okay, because Big Pharma is ready to come in with the meds, and the doctors are only trained in how to write the scripts for the meds. I mean, it's just amazing. All right, then we meet, there's this woman, and she was a vegan, not just a vegetarian, but a vegan, and now she eats meat. And she went through this whole transformation in her own personal journey with her foods. But then she talks about an acre of land, and if you take it and you take it and you strip it of everything, and it loses all below, all of the roots that have the channels for the water, so everything stays hydrated. And you just tear it all up and you plant corn. And she said you fly from one end of the country to the other, and all you see are these circles and squares, and it's nothing but grains being grown because of the subsidies and the standard American diet. And so she talked a lot about that and what you could do with an acre, and if you kept it as just the pasture, and you put the animals on it, and you put, the animals are eating the grass, and then the underground system of the water, it just ends up better and better and better, and the land gets refurbished by the animals, poop, and how it just evolves. It's just life, and the human beings that benefit from the animals. And it was good. She was cool, and I didn't get her name, but so then we meet Joel Salatin, Salatin, and he probably has a dozen books on Amazon all about pasture raising farms for profit, the business side of it, the how to do it side of it. And he is just one of those incredibly articulate men who just talks about his herds and how he moves them from acre to acre, and how, everything just keeps on going, and how you can actually make a profit doing this, and how his animals are. And there's like this lineup of beautiful female cows, and it's a photo op. It's almost like they are so sensitized that they all pull in for this like group photo. It's just sweet moments, and he's really cool. So it's Joel Salatin, and he talks about pastured land and pastured raised animals. And you can find out all about him on Amazon. And if you're like me, you read the reviews and you feel like you've read the book, and that works. And so then there's this woman, Debbie. Oh, so Debbie isn't the one from the family. Debbie is the one with the diabetes, and she's spending $1,000 a month for insulin. Oh, and that little autistic girl, she takes 2 convulsory meds, and one of them is $3,000 a month. But the copay is only $1,000 for the father, only $1,000. And so anyway, this woman is spending $1,000 a month on her insulin, and she is probably 60. She's a retired nurse, and she's overweight, probably by 200 pounds. And so she begins on the keto diet, and it shows her with this nurse practitioner or physician's assistant, PA, and how they're going over everything. And, the timeline, she's in 6 months, she's lost 60 pounds, 45 pounds, 45 pounds, 3 dress sizes. She looks at it. She's on no more insulin, so she's saving $1,000 a month. She has a new lease on life, and she's energized. You could tell that she'll probably go back into the field of nursing because she's got this energy. And she cannot believe as a nurse how they didn't train her on nutrition. She just, that's like a lot of us. We just can't believe, as we come out of a doctor's office, and each one of these things is a script for something for, the standard American diet, chronic diseases, fix, not heal, fix. And she's just amazed. She just is so filled with life. She'd be a pal here on my keto channel. That's how I look at her. And she said her eating is clean now. Her headaches are gone. She used to have these horrible headaches. She didn't call them migraines. Her thoughts are much more balanced. She feels much more present, and her energy. And so finally, I'll end this because this one's getting long too. They go back to the Aborigine women on this 2-week retreat where they're eating the way that their forefathers ate. And then they do all the blood work and testing to see how they did. 11 out of 11 women with diabetes are no longer diabetic in 2 weeks. They've lost weight. They're just light. They show them doing all these Aborigine dances and how they're cooking and how they're eating, and they do this kind of like a clam bake. If you've ever had one, I don't know if you have, but like they make these tinfoil things of all this food, and then they put it on the coals, and then they cover it with bark from trees, and that's an old custom. They didn't have aluminum foil, but And they show them all eating, and they just show them so vibrant, so in love with life again, and clearly steering away from all of the Nestle foods that have been brought to their tribes. And they've got the nutritionists working with them. These two people that have done more for these tribes than, all of the corporate money, all the king's horses and all the king's men, meaning all the packages and the Coca-Cola and the awful stuff. And so it's just a beautiful movie with so many different segments that, we can learn from. And just, so many of us come to keto because we're overweight and we want to do something different. And we hear about, how people lose weight. But as this movie shows, it's so much, much more than that. So give it a watch a couple times and see how you do with it. It's just one of those things that just validates and confirms why we keep doing what we're doing every day. Don't worry, Sarah will be back with her smackdowns and her boot campish ways, but I just wanted to share something that really is a game changer and life transformational for me. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you the next time. Bye-bye for now.